Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Alright folks, so I guess the conversation's over, right? I guess there's no more debate? The border obviously isn't secure. I mean, that was a lie from day one. It was pretty much obvious to everyone. But over and over again, over the last couple of months, we keep hearing that actually the Biden administration is very much working towards securing the southern border, even though Karine Jean-Pierre couldn't list a single freaking initiative or piece of policy that they were pursuing to actually attain that goal.
I understand you don't want to negotiate from the podium, but can you tell the American people if there's any immigration policy that this White House is willing to talk about and is working on with Republicans?
So I want to be really careful as negotiations happen. We don't want to do this in the public, right? It does not help the process. And so we want to make sure that those negotiations are happening. Obviously, we're part of those negotiations with the senators. We think it's going in the right direction. We want to make sure that we get to a bipartisan agreement. It's incredibly important.
Oh, but rest assured, Joe Biden's doing everything he can. He takes the southern border crisis very seriously. Well, that argument obviously doesn't hold up anymore. After Texas stepped in saying, if you won't do the job, then we will, and after a very unfortunate decision by the Supreme Court telling Texas that they essentially don't have the right to protect their own sovereignty or to enforce federal laws, or I guess the law of the land. And yeah, I know, it's a very frustrating decision from the Supreme Court, but whatever, it happened. I'm not here to discuss the Supreme Court decision, more so the Biden administration response. You know, in a way, I'm glad the Supreme Court made the decision that it did. In a certain way, it kind of feels like a good thing, because now the Biden administration has no more excuses. They are fully exposed. We see exactly what they're trying to do, folks. They're not trying to secure the border. They're enabling this illegal migration racket, human smuggling, funneling billions of dollars into the cartels. They are actively working to subvert American sovereignty. And at this point, the discussion, the argument is over. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on. Let's have a conversation. As things are now getting messy in Texas, we got some stuff to get into. So let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so I kind of alluded to what was going on in the intro, but let's really do a layman terms, TLDR, too long didn't read. Here's essentially what's happening. The Texas government under Greg Abbott is fed up with the illegal migration chaos at the southern border, and so they decided if the federal government isn't going to do anything, then they're going to step up and enforce federal law. And so that's exactly what they did. They installed barbed wire, buoys, and other, let's call them border security measures. They used Texas resources, Texas taxpayer dollars, to secure the southern border because the federal government refuses to do so. And what was Joe Biden's response? The White House took Texas to the Supreme Court, which ended up in a decision that decided that the buoys, the barbed wire, and the newly erected barriers are supposedly illegal. So now the question is Texas going to just sit down and take it and allow Biden's open borders policies to simply continue? Of course, that was never going to happen. Greg Abbott isn't the one to back down. And so they're now refusing to comply. Texas officials are seizing areas like Shelby Park and using the Texas National Guard to essentially keep doing what they were doing and keep placing these barriers. So that's what it looks like at many of the major entry points at the southern border, specifically on the border with Texas. And this is now causing a massive fuss. I know. Top Democrats and some Texas Democrats are now calling on the White House to, quote, federalize the Texas National Guard.
Homeland Security Department has asked for access to this park that is now currently in dispute. It doesn't seem like they've gotten it. They now are allowed to cut down razor wire. Yeah. Some Democrats are saying the president needs to federalize the Texas National Guard.
So look,
is that something that could happen?
I mean, look, I'll say this. The Border Patrol agents are now, as you said, allowed to cut through the wire because of what the Supreme Court has laid out. It's unfortunate that we had to go there. It's unfortunate that there is a governor in Texas, Governor Abbott, who has politicized this issue of what's happening on the border. And it's not making people's lives safer. It's actually making it harder for law enforcement at the border to do their job. And so we have been very clear. We want to make sure we get something done at the border. That's why we've been having these conversations with Senate Republicans and Democrats for the past several weeks to come up with a bipartisan agreement to deal with the border. And look, if the governor is not interested in that, Governor Abbott is not interested in that. He wants to politicize an issue, and he's not helping communities. He actually isn't. And he's actually putting Border Patrol agents in harm's way by doing what he's doing. I'm not going to speak to any actions that the president might take, may not take, but we have been very clear on this.
Economy.
And so the people who are currently being accused of refusing to secure the southern border, to enforce federal law, who then respond with, oh, that's a right-wing conspiracy theory, are now talking about federalizing the Texas National Guard, essentially a federal overtake of, let's call it the Texas military, not to enforce the law, but to ensure that Texas is not allowed to enforce border laws, is not allowed to protect the sovereignty of the nation. That is the most insane thing ever. And these leftist copium arguments are unreal here. Take a look at what the genius minds at MSNBC were saying.
And very quickly, this massive resistance, it sounds like the old Southerners who said that we will resist integration by any means necessary, that Chip Roy language. How does that read inside of the Latino community?
I mean, it's very simple. You know, if you're the Republican Party, you're allegedly the party of laws and order, and you're essentially telling local authorities to break the law. No, so I think once again, going into this image of, you know, who is the party of law and order and who is the party for democracy, I think that's where we all have to highlight the hypocrisy, regardless of the politics. They're essentially telling people to break the law.
Texas isn't following the rule of the law. The Republicans present themselves as the party of the rule of law. But look at them now, attempting to break the law by refusing to cooperate with the Supreme Court decision. I mean, what a warped way to look at it. You know, sure, the Supreme Court decided that Texas doesn't have the, quote, authority to do what it's doing, but the implication that Texas isn't fighting for the rule of law just because of that Supreme Court decision makes no sense at all. What they're doing is attempting to enforce the law, but the federal government won't let them. That's the nucleus here. That's the core here. Yet they're trying to flip the whole thing on its head just because the Supreme Court made one decision based on the legalities of who can do what, that somehow makes them the party of law and order. How many times do I have to repeat myself over and over and over again? The Democrat Party is becoming the party of human trafficking. Hello? Anybody gonna wake up? You know, Texas may not be doing the legal thing right now, absolutely, but they certainly are doing the right thing. And as this story progresses, as we continue to see the Biden administration and Democrat Party stances and actions, the picture becomes more and more clear. You know, the veil has been lifted. They've attempted to kind of, blow mist, create a haze effect to confuse the general public. But after their most recent actions, as we see what they're doing and contrast it with what they're saying, it's becoming increasingly clear that the Biden administration is aiding and abetting the cartel's human smuggling operations. It's starting to become very clear. The mist is fading away. The haze is no longer blinding. People in their own party can see the truth. I mean, John Fetterman continues to take a stance against the Biden administration's inaction at the southern border, and the Democrat refusal to address this as a crisis that they created.
I honestly don't understand why it's controversial to say we need a secure border. I've been very clear. In fact, that was weaponized against me as Republicans in my race, that I'm very much a strong supporter of immigration. And, my wife's family, that's the Oregon story about that. And I think two things can be true at the same time. You can be very supportive of immigration, but we also need to have a secure border. And I think about immigration as we want to provide the American dream for any migrant. But it seems very difficult when you have 300,000 people showing up encountered at our border to do that. And I think we need to do a reset, and we have to work together and develop a new comprehensive solution to that.
And so it's becoming increasingly clear, I guess, that the Democrat Party is a party full of hypocrites, constant propaganda, constant lies, and now attempting to flip the script as if Texas is doing something bad. Texas is doing the right thing and putting their neck on the line to save the nation from Biden's chaos. That is the reality. And that's also what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.